Welcome to Beyond the Curtain, our Juniper podcast. My name is Rachel Judge. I'm a board member for Juniper Performing Arts. And today I have with me Brit Ward. So Brit, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Thanks for being here.
I appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. We met, I think 10 minutes ago?
Yeah,
for the first time.
Just for the first time. So thanks for joining us. We are excited to hear everything that you've got to say. But tell us a little bit, who is Brit Ward?
Brit Ward, he is one of the most egotistical, horrible... No, I'm kidding. I try not to be. No, I am a theater guy, of course. I'm a longtime director and playwright. I wasn't always. I kind of went into... I was going to be a filmmaker. I went to San Juan College for that. But that was 20 years ago, and Luke Renner and Hales Bassing weren't doing what they're doing now. So I didn't want to do a videography program where I would learn to make instructional videos for the oil field. So I got into theater, and it never let me go.
Yeah, I make instructional videos for a technology company, and so didn't know that I'd be doing that either. But
well, I regret it because it actually pays all right. But so whoopsie.
Well, so where are you from originally? How did you get into performing arts and everything that you do?
Well, I'm from here. I'm born and bred Farmingtonian, for what that's worth. I love the area. I've moved abroad a couple of times, but largely I find my heart back here. Performing arts wasn't always a thing I was involved in. I'm a writer first, and cool. I got started writing like prose as a child, but as I got older, and then once I went into college and theater got its claws into me, it just kept me. So
yeah, awesome. What kind of things did you start writing? Like, do you remember as a kid what fascinated you? Or
I had a weird obsession with Michael Crichton and Dean Koontz as a child.
Okay.
So I wrote a lot of science fiction, like suspense science fiction. About the age of 16, I discovered literary fiction and became profoundly pretentious, but also kind of learned to love stories about just relationship dynamics. And so gone were the days of science fiction. And now I write about people yelling at each other and crying about it.
I love when a passion from our childhood, something that we just innately were drawn to or loved or became a part of us, follows us into adulthood or makes a resurgence comes back. I think that there's a lot of our identity can be wrapped up in that. And so I'm so glad to hear that that started so young for you and was able to kind of weave its way through. Growing up here in Farmington, what were some of the ways in your life that you were able to kind of explore that? Was it at school? Did you have teachers? Was it just kind of self-led? Were there groups that you were a part of?
Well, it's interesting. You kind of talked about Farmington first. My stories are clearly, even when it's a fictionalized version, set in Farmington. And my home life has always been it's so important to me that you know the town these characters live in. It's so important that you know the environment because it kind of becomes its own character. And so I think that the town itself, with all of its wonderful idiosyncrasies, and I love Farmington and I love Aztec and this whole area. And I think a lot of my writing is defined by the fact that my life experience growing up here, the people, the genuine, it's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but like the actual diversity of the town, everything from ideology down to just the intrinsic nature of people. It influences how you approach writing. And as a child, you don't know that's what's happening, but that's absolutely what did happen to me. And it formed me in a great way.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, so you are a part of a community group, TEA or T. Tell us a little bit about how you got started with that and what you do with them.
So theater ensemble arts are those are my people, but they weren't always. When I was going to college for theater, I actually hated theater ensemble arts. I'm not proud of that. I regret it. I take it back. But
permission to change.
I thank God for that. But years later, they would approach me. It was Michelle Holmes, actually, who's on the board of directors for T. She would approach me directing something called Drinking Habits, which is written by, I think he's in MSU. I forget the name of the professor, and I feel so bad.
Go Aggies.
Yeah. Wonderful, silly little French farce homage show about nuns making wine in secret. It's very funny. And they approached me about directing that. And I hadn't directed for a number of years at that point. The last thing I directed, I think, was Jean-Paul Sartre's No Exit, which is a bit of a change. And so I did that, and then from there, quickly they pulled me in, and it became like a family immediately. So from just I became a part of the organization and never looked back.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what they do. What is this group? How did you, like how are you in relation with them? What kind of projects do they do? I am familiar, but I don't know that all of our audience will be familiar with that
Yeah.
group.
So I think they're going on 30 some odd years at this point in existence. I can't remember all the names of the founding members, and I feel terrible about that. I know Mort Lord was one of them. One of my mentors, Debbie Doggett, was another one. And they've been a long time. I think the slogan is your community theater, and that's the mission statement. We're going to be Farmington and the area's community theater. And that's sort of the approach, is to bring a wide variety of shows, whether it be the shows for us theater people like August Osage County, or the plays like Drinking Habits that are more broad to, to a town that isn't necessarily known for theatricality. And that they've been doing it for 3 decades now. So
Yeah. So you mentioned that you had your first project with them was Drinking Habits,
Mhm.
and you were directing. What are the different roles that people can have? They are acting, directing, like what are all of the components that the community can be a part of?
Well, the amazing thing about theater is that if you have a talent in anything, there's some place for you. Because a lot of people, when they think of theater, they think of the actors first, which
Yes.
makes sense. But acting is just that tip of that iceberg. I mean, when people say, "Well, I can build things," oh my God, we need you. Things. Melanie, the love of my life, my soulmate. Shout out to Melanie, who's also on the board of directors for T. She, she's one of those people that can handle mountains of paperwork like it's nothing. She usually runs the box office for the shows. She's often doing a lot of the behind the scenes work. So, like, quite literally, every position that's ever needed for anything is needed for theater. There are other creative positions like the director, like the actors, like the people building props and such, but it's actually shockingly almost bureaucratic in some places.
Yeah. How, over the years, so you had your first one, how many projects would you say that you've been a part of annually? Just in any ballpark?
Oh my gosh. A few dozen.
Yeah,
Times two. It's been a lot. I've directed at least 10 shows myself,
that's
and then
amazing.
and acting, helping backstage, whatever. It's easily in the half century mark. I mean, I've done a lot.
Wow. So directing, what do you love about directing?
I love working with actors. There is a kind of alchemy that happens. It's just such a pretentious way to say that, but
No, the
but
alchemy is a good word.
it's what it feels like, where you'll have a vision for the whole of the play, and you start talking to an actor, and they and I've been blessed. I've had so many great casts that these actors, they'll look at the character and really they do their homework, and they kind of build this not real person up to be something real. And when you start communicating and you find those little nuggets of just those beautiful small moments in a show, it's so exciting to watch. And really, the director's job, once you've cast it well, you kind of just watch amazing actors do cool things. And so I'm basically a nobody on set at that point. But it's, for me, it's almost like getting to be the first audience member, and it's a very exhilarating, almost spiritually fulfilling process, watching these people create these what are effectively going to become life and blood characters that you're going to watch through a proscenium. Like it feels like magic. And
Yeah.
I think that's the only way I could describe it.
Well, and it's like palpable hearing you talk about that and just seeing your body language and the way that you're experiencing that. And the humility, I think, of a director to allow actors to do their thing isn't always the magic component there, right? Like
Right.
I think that that's maybe an authenticity and a genuineness that you bring to your performances or your the shows that you're a part of, any of the productions. But I would imagine that the casting, everything else, the synergy there just has to fit. And so it seems like you minimized your role in that, I'm sure, tremendously. But being able to curate that and support that and nurture it and allow the magic to happen is such a delicate and really amazing process to watch from an audience perspective.
I agree with that. I think I've had some bad experiences. I don't act often, but every once in a while I get the bug, and I've worked with some directors. I worked with a lot of great directors for sure, but in college especially, you would get the guy who really wanted it to be his production. And I think, in a medium that is the actor's medium, that's a mistake.
Yeah.
You're there to delegate as a director, you're there to delegate and direct attention effectively. And outside of that, let the actors do their job.
So you mentioned some of the other maybe lesser known things, getting props together, the backstage groups, the admin part of that. Have you seen those people come and get their hooks? T gets their hooks in them and then they never leave like you? Or do you have a rotational basis of people coming in different seasons of their life?
It ebbs and flows. When you have an organization that's lasted as long as T has, there have been times where you get this like core group of people, and those are the best of times because you get that familiarity with one another.
Sure.
Then you fall in the times where people either move on or they're people who do it a couple of times and they're done. For the most part, we do have a core. Lately, we've been desperately trying to get more people into directing, and that's not an easy task because, like, for example, with T, they require somebody to do assistant directing at least one show with T before they can direct, for obvious reasons. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with it, but it's sometimes it is hard to find new talent. We have the play coming up, Dracula, Caleb. Oh my gosh, I forgot his last name. I'm sorry, Caleb. I love you to death. He's directing for the first time, I believe, and he's such a put together guy. But it's exciting that we finally have somebody like some new blood coming in, and we've had a few new people coming in, and right now we're in a time where we have a good core, but it's actually been harder to find certain roles, directors being one of them.
Sure.
We're trying and we're getting there, but right now it's been a little slower with that.
I would imagine, right, with high school programs or even collegiate programs, I've coached swimming in every capacity, but there's kind of 4 years, right? And you always have new talent coming in. You always have new talent developing over time, and you have graduating seniors. And so for a group like this that's been around for 3 decades, I think that core group has the ability to not stay stagnant, but also be changing dynamically as they grow and evolve as people or as actors or in different roles. And so how would you encourage people to dip their toe in if you're looking for directors, getting in as an assistant director for a show, or even just exposing themselves to it? If they're interested, where would you tell them to start?
Well, look for Theater Ensemble Arts on Facebook. That's a good starting place. Or email trtsnm@gmail.com, I believe is the website, as an email address. Contact us. We're very much a jump in kind of organization. We do offer, there's some element of education. Theater is complex and it is a very technically oriented art form. It's not like film acting where you have to be naturalistic. And theater, it's a very structured process. Being an actor, you have to learn how to face the stage, all that kind of fun stuff. But one of the ways to learn that is to just jump in. And we've had actors, people who have never acted in their lives, show up, and it turns out they belong on stage.
Sure.
And it happens more often than you would expect, given how challenging that process can be. So for me, it's like, once you reach out to us, come to an audition. You never know. And I've seen people not only kind of be surprised themselves with even just being a performer, but realizing that not only can they do it, they love it. And it becomes that thing they have to do every season.
Yeah. Awesome. So the audition process, obviously, if you're going out for a role, if you're looking for one of those behind the scenes, getting involved with the stage prep, the making the background, why can't I think of the word at the moment? But any of those roles don't require an audition, but probably require some sort of reach out. And how does that work?
So our audition, when you audition or you go to an audition, we have our forms and stuff, and it's asked on there if you want to do tech stuff.
Oh, okay.
And quite literally, you can just be like, I don't want to audition. Can I do tech behind the scenes? It's like, yeah, please, because we never have enough of that.
Sure. So it still is part of the audition time frame.
You're welcome to reach out though, and if you specifically like, hey, I like painting or whatever it might be, we're happy to hear from that. In which case, it's a smooth process. We'll probably just be like, hey, show up.
Yeah, cool. So, what projects are you working on recently?
A lot.
Well, tell us all about it. Start at
Uh,
the beginning.
I'll start at the beginning. I'm working on three major things right now. A novel I can't talk about the title of, sorry. I'm working on an adaptation. I have a reputation, I guess, for writing public domain stories for the stage. I did Treasure Island a few years ago, and that turned out great. I love that show. I'm
Awesome.
doing Wuthering Heights for the stage. I'm going to say something controversial now. I don't think there's ever been a good adaptation of Wuthering Heights. They always focus on Catherine and Heathcliff, and I'm sorry to tell people that's not a love story. It's a story about escaping generational trauma. So I'm trying to correct that with my version. It's not quite there yet, but I'm still working on it. And then I'm working on a movie.
Awesome. I want to sit with Wuthering Heights for just a second
Sure,
because when
sure.
you were talking about growing up in Farmington and Farmington being kind of this place that you want to feel like one of the characters, Wuthering Heights was one of my favorite books growing up. And describing the landscape, they really just sit so much in
Mm.
the the place that they are being one of the characters. And so it doesn't surprise me that you're drawn to that, and I'm excited to see what you do with that. So you've got a book, you've got stage, and did you say a movie?
Hmm. It's
All different timelines, or what?
oh,
How do you work on so many projects simultaneously?
I don't know if I'm successfully doing it. I can't tell.
I'm sure you are.
The novel's taken a little bit of a backseat because the playwriting is and screenwriting is a little easier for me. I don't know what it is about dialogue that I just it's very natural for me. Prose I have to really process and take my time with. But so Wuthering Heights, well, it's a challenge because the language is wrapped in its period. It's still easier for me to write that than long prose descriptions of, a castle or something.
Sure.
Film also just dialogue. I like dialogue. I like writing dialogue. Probably why theater ended up being such an important part for me is conversations and the fact that you're simulating reality, even though you're not writing the way people talk because people are boring when they talk. If your normal conversation is the worst thing you can listen to for entertainment purposes, but you're trying to simulate that reality while also doing something entertaining. And that for me is where I think I manage my time the best. So like, in the morning, I'll usually start with the theater stuff because in the morning I'm a little more upbeat and ready and I'm got bright eyed and stuff. And I haven't entered my jaded phase of the day yet. And then the evening, because film is what it is, I start getting grumpy and I write the film.
Are you a coffee person? Do you drink coffee?
I hate coffee. I almost to the point of being it might be a psychosis of mine. I try Melanie, God bless her. She drinks coffee and I try and it just didn't work out for me.
I was just trying to picture setting the scene in the
Mhm.
morning of like how you're getting going.
It's usually I have a big water jug thing. It's one of those Brita
Oh yeah.
things with the little tube inside that cleans out the water. I fill that up in the morning and I start doing my notes and then I write. And my desk is a disaster. I won't send pictures publicly of what that looks like right now. And that's where I start with my computer screen on. I usually have a little bit of music going depending on what I'm writing. So I'm a little on the nose. I have Pat Benatar's Wuthering Heights playing for that play. For the
Love that.
movie, I'll have there's a film called Triplets of Belleville, an animated film, extraordinarily good film. And I can't remember the name of the song, but there's a French guy who sings a song for it. I play that for the movie we're working on because it's a ridiculous comedy. So just that kind of stuff.
Awesome. This is just a tangent story here, so bear with
I
me.
love
But I
tangents.
work at a software company and we use Slack all day long. And recently we had this channel, our HR and our security teams are really auditing like what we're allowed to have on our devices, and people were in an uproar about Spotify was no longer supported for the desktop, but you
Oof.
could use the web browser version. And man, the productivity people were really just up in arms about this. They were like, I can't hit my ideal workflow because I can't listen to this version of it on the desktop. And anyway, our security team stood firm on their stance for
Oh,
this.
brutal.
But I do think that there is something like with movement or music that really just helps us kind of tap into that creativity. So I loved that you explained kind of the different moods that you were creating in your space, the way that you were feeling in your body, and then the projects that you were allowing yourself to work on.
Your description of that security team, I think I actually felt my body tense up and my soul kind of got sad.
I was joking that I was going to take the whole thread of the conversation back and forth and plug it into AI and make those like silly songs about it. But maybe I'll write my own song about it.
Sure,
So
sure.
I was going to ask you, you were mentioning sitting at your computer. Are you ever a pen and paper person when you're writing, or do you always type or?
I I can only type for so long and I start to get angry. It's a weird I'm not like angry, just a little annoyed. And there's something about that the tactile sensation of a pen or pencil across paper that kind of centers me a little.
Yeah.
Especially when you write dialogue. I feel bad for I think there's an author named Robert Olin Butler who is also a creative writing instructor at Florida State. He talks about like he wrote I think 3 or 4 novels by hand, and it's that's at least 50,000 words. That's probably a bridge too far for me, but dialogue, I have hundreds of notebooks filled with even just free writing characters that'll pop into my head. They don't ever end up in anything, but just a little exercise, and it's just people talking. And
Yeah.
I often do that by hand because I don't know, it feels honest. It feels like I'm contacting my predecessors. I've even thought unironically of getting a quill and ink well and just trying it out. My handwriting probably couldn't handle that, but I would try
Mm.
it.
You said Quill and Quest,
Mhm.
the bookstore downtown Farmington. They have some writing groups that are there, and so I think that there's no lack of opportunity, is what I'm hearing
One
for
of my dearest
people.
friends runs Delchery Glass, or no, she's married, Delchery Spinner. She runs the Right to Public or Writing to Public. Oh my God, I'm done. Sorry, Del. Whatever it's called. She runs little workshops down at Quill and Quest, puts a lot of
Yeah.
effort into it. She's not only one of the best writers I've ever personally met, but the amount of energy she puts into getting other writers to write and how generous she is with her time. Like she's one of those people that she's given me more of her time than I could ever deserve. And like, how do there's no way I'll ever repay that, but she's so generous with it. Dell's amazing. She recently married one of my other dearest friends, Chris Spinner, and yeah, they're both of those people are like dear friends.
I love that. And I love this community. I've been here for 3 years, but the people in this community do so much, and there is really no lack of opportunity. I think sometimes this feels like a small town, right? And
Mm-hmm.
people often are looking at it from if we could go somewhere bigger, or if Denver or Phoenix or places, even Albuquerque, that are close. I think there's really, if you start looking for opportunity or for the right person, there's so much right here in Farmington. And so I love that you were talking about, this is just a local bookshop that is hosting all sorts of community engagement events, and then specifically for writing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really awesome. So
Amanda and Craig do great work, and they've also been very generous with their store.
yes.
This town has a disproportionately high number of writers, and it doesn't surprise me because you mentioned it's a small town, feels like a small town, but we infamously have a weekend population because we are the commercial hub of the area.
Yeah.
And so as a writer, that's wonderful because part of the week it's kind of quiet, and then on the weekends there's an assortment of people, and there's a story. Every one of those people has a story. It doesn't surprise me we have so many writers and that we have the community we do, because this whole place is just oozing inspiration.
Yeah. Do you have any other peers that you pull inspiration from? Do you have people who read your work? What is your like review process, or your close knit safe space to kind of explore or test things out, or hey, will you look at this with me? Do you have a community of people like
For a
that?
long time, I did not. And then actually, Chris and Dell became that for me. Chris, especially with Treasure Island, he was the first time he reviewed anything I had done, and Chris was not shy about pointing the problems out in the story. And I'm the kind of person who likes notes. I don't take it personally, even in writing groups where that one guy's giving bad faith notes. You can still glean useful stuff from that. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I actually did a workshop for Dell where I talked about taking notes from people. And one of the things I talk about is it's not personal and you are not your work. Like you should separate yourself from that. That's a hell. You have to, I think for long-term mental health, when as a writer, you cannot become your work, it has to be separate. And so Chris and Dell and to some extent, like Melanie, my girlfriend, those are the people that tend to read my work. And I'm never at risk of them doing the, oh, it's so great. It's always, listen, this was strong here. This wasn't. And it's always very honest feedback. And so in that regard, I'm very blessed. And to the extent I maybe unfortunately will write maybe not as well as I can, knowing full well they might find things where they kind of point what I need to correct, and that might be a problem. But it's a very robust little group we have in terms of the kind of feedback I get, and it's made me a better writer by an order of magnitude.
I don't know that it's a problem. It's probably a process. And it sounds like you've really refined your process based on honesty and truth and being able, I can't come in and give you harsh criticism if we don't have a rapport.
Right.
It's way easier for me to come in and give you what my honest opinion might be, and you can hold that with space for, I can hear Rachel's perspective, but I also don't know that I need to change anything because of that, but
Right.
allowing it to breathe and give it some space. So I'm glad that you've evolved to include some other people. I'm glad that you found trusted advisors that are aiding in your creative process, and I'm glad that you've really leaned in there. There's so many of us that just want to do life alone and
Right.
want to hold true with this is my thing. I took this on. I can't ask for help. I can't allow somebody into this because then its integrity is lost in some way. And I think I feel my most creative when I let people into that space.
Right.
And it's vulnerable, and you have to, choose the people that you're going to let in. But I think that that's a really cool thing that you have. So
I agree. And you've said vulnerable, and I think art. I had a teacher many years ago say to me that art is defined as equal parts hubris, humility, contrast, and vulnerability. And then he said with a heavy dashing of trauma on top. And I tend to agree with that when I'm talking to actors. I said, if you really want to hit that moment, it's not about being a method actor, because I'll just take my stance here. That's a very dangerous process, and I don't necessarily agree with it. But acting is vulnerability, unfortunately. It's one of the reasons why I tend to be a little softer on actors than I am other people, because they are showing parts of themselves. Even if you don't see the specific what it is they're pulling from, there's real pain there. And so I tend to be like, it becomes almost counseling afterwards, almost therapy. And art is vulnerability. And it can be difficult to let people into that process. It can make you better, like you said, but it's especially early on, it's like exposing a raw nerve. It hurts sometimes. And
yeah.
it takes a while to get used to that.
Well, and you were just talking about, you said therapy, and there's not a person on the planet who can benefit from a little bit of therapy, right? Or a lot of bit of therapy. But I think one of the things with therapy and art and creativity and healing and pain is the ability to take on somebody else's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And we had talked a little bit about role playing. And
Right.
so how do you incorporate role play into all of your character development, your story development, just the process of role playing?
Well, I was, coming up, I really wanted to be a filmmaker when I was a kid. And my group of friends were not at all interested in that. They were like, oh my God, he's doing that thing again. They were all really into things like Dungeons and Dragons and a few other more obscure games. And I I can't remember the names of them. I think one of them was called Deadlands, which was this weird spaghetti western meets like Sam Raimi horror film. It was an interesting setting, and we would play these games a lot and do the role playing sessions. And one of the things that's fascinating is that when you gamify the process of developing a character, it kind of takes you outside of the box of traditional narrative building.
Yeah.
When you write a story, you need a narrative, you need these scenes to all be a part of the larger picture. But when you're pulled out of it and you kind of have to actually detail out everything about this character, they would have systematized things like advantages and disadvantages. So you get so many points for your character and you spend it on your advantages. Like he's really good at sightseeing, or he can like see long distances, or his sense of smell is really good. But you also had to take disadvantages to balance them out. So like he has night terrors or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that pulled me into a space where it kind of made me think outside the box, not just the traditional, you want your characters to have downsides. Of course you do, but to how far can you push that? And it allowed me, like when I, kind of also dovetailing with like the concept of different perspectives, it pulled me into a space where I stopped writing characters that would agree with me necessarily. In fact, I do everything I can to steel man the people I find the most abhorrent in my stories because it challenges me.
Sure.
And that came kind of weirdly from this group of, not to be mean, but my nerdy group of friends who played these games. And there was a weird kind of balancing act that they presented to me that came from role-playing sessions.
I think that, so my niece has autism and she was really into Dungeons and Dragons.
Sure.
And so she wanted to play, and during COVID, everybody was connecting a little bit more intentionally online. And so we made myself a character. I'm a bard of some sort and an elf and 135 years old. And there was a lot of fun in this development of the character. And as I was learning a little bit more about Dungeons and Dragons, and I just told Shannon, I said, well, why wouldn't people just memorize all of the, like, these characters that you can potentially come into? I'm like, it's not infinite forever, right? And I just wanted to win it, right? Like, I wanted to like figure out like, how do you do Dungeons and Dragons the best? And she said, you don't have to do it the best, Aunt Rach. You just have to play. And I think there was a lot of freedom in just taking a look at, like you said, strengths and disadvantages in that is how a character is.
Right.
You can't just create a character that only has strengths, and you can't create a space where winning is the only objective.
Right.
And so I think that creating these opportunities for people to extend what they have created as a narrative about themselves and let them take on something else. Like you were just mentioning, right? Having these things that challenge you and aren't necessarily so tied to you as a person or you as a character, or they're maybe a little more different, then there's an opportunity to explore there. And I think that that's really neat. So what are some of the characters, some of your favorite characters that you're developing, either for your movie or for your Wuthering Heights adaptation or for the show?
Well, I have a tendency, especially with romantic, even if it's like, say, Heathcliff and Catherine, where it's a very clearly toxic romance.
Sure.
I like having, when I directed Much Ado About Nothing, Daniel West and Clara Johnson played Benedict and Beatrice. And I kind of commented that in narrative fiction, I like to have a character who's the put together low maintenance one and the character who's a high maintenance one. It's a classic dynamic, but it works pretty universally. And where I find myself often is I'll have two main characters who have that dynamic on some form, but often by the end of it, you start to realize, well, actually they're both low maintenance and high maintenance. And you find the different scenarios where that ebbs and flows. Heathcliff and Catherine are not a great example because they're a mess, but
they are a mess.
But you contrast them with the other set, young Kathy and Harriton, and by the end of that, I don't want to spill too much about how I'm structuring that play.
Sure.
But where I find that dynamic of characters, I like relationship dynamics. I think that's the most fun thing to write about. When I wrote Treasure Island, we changed Jim to Jennifer because we kind of knew the young women that were going to audition, and we knew it was going to be one of them. So having a 10-year-old boy versus a 16-year-old girl is easier to go with the 16-year-old girl on stage. But that's a play. My version of it is about relationship dynamics. It's, Jennifer's relationship with her mother and how contentious it is at the beginning. It's Jennifer's relationship with Long John Silver and how he kind of becomes a de facto father figure. It's her dynamic with the other characters on that. And that's where I really get excited to write or even direct. I focus almost, when I'm directing, I tend to focus almost exclusively on those dynamics. When we did Arsenic and Old Lace, I mean, it's clear you've got Mortimer and Jonathan, Mortimer and the aunts, Mortimer and Elaine, and all these little like different dynamics, how they react to each other. And when you separate it like that, it's almost, the way a director will separate French scenes, but in this case, you're talking about like story beats, and that breakdown appeals to me both on a structural level, but also in a way that it kind of livens up the play, and suddenly you become more intimate with the characters. And that process is, I mentioned alchemy early, so I won't say it again, but it's like almost a religious experience for me. And it's a weird thing to say, but it's a very like spiritually satisfying process.
Yeah, I think like catalytic, like the alchemy, I think is such a powerful word because you're really picturing what's happening in that process. And so feel free to use it again and again and again. Well, what is your favorite part about this community? I know we've talked about the people here and the landscape and the opportunity, the programming, but for you, what is your favorite thing about Farmington?
I won't just take the easy answer and say the people, even though that's mostly true. I love everyone here. Even where I have disagreements with people, I don't know. Everyone's got a story, and even where I find what they do bad, I'm like, well, you got there somehow, and you're human, just as human as I am. So that's part of it. But if I have a weird affinity for old buildings. When we would travel to visit my older kids in Texas, and we would drive through, there's a joke about driving in parts of Texas where every town is the same town. And it's, there's the Dairy Queen, the football stadium, and the church.
Yeah.
And then there would be the downtown part that has all the older buildings. Well, Farmington has, I think, one of the most extraordinarily interesting downtown areas. And I know there's been a lot of effort to artify it up, I guess. But there are elements of it that is so characterful, and there isn't a building I don't pass that a story doesn't just occur to me. That there's all something that they're trying to tell me something, and that it creates like this lingering kind of pleasure in me, where I can just be sitting there thinking about all the various buildings and even some of the newer ones. But yeah, downtown is such a beautiful part of Farmington, and it's loaded with history and stories. I think it's Barry Digman is I think I got his name right, the realtor who seems to have like complete knowledge of the history of Farmington. When he talks about stuff, I'm like, I listen because I'm going to steal something from him, and it's going to turn into a story at some point.
Yeah, the structures down there, the Tota Theater, right? There's such a beautiful space, and just the way that they've honored the integrity of that building over time, and just the feelings that you get when you walk in the door, when you see the marquee sign. It's nostalgic, and it feels relevant. And I think that the 302 Artifacts down there was an old lumber yard that's been in the Taylor's family forever. And the way that they invite people into that space to be a part of it. The things in the bathroom, there's the clear epoxy, and they've got all of the old like nails and different things everywhere in that space. That they've just tried to preserve the history there. I don't know that they've hosted Dining with the Dead there. I can't think of where it is, but I think there's like all of this having history come alongside us
Mhm.
as we continue on. And I think Farmington has so much of that, specifically downtown, but just in the buildings and the spaces.
Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
love that about here as well. So, well, what's the most exciting thing for the rest of the summer for you? What are you looking forward to?
We are making a movie called The Bonehead, and it's
Awesome.
hard, but it's fun. It's a dopey little film about a young woman trapped inside of a bad independent film. And I have to be careful with it because there are some of the film. I've got a few friends who are also filmmakers who are in the movie, and I knew them reading the script. I was like, please don't take it personally. I'm making fun of all of us, mostly me. But it's a nice, just a little me having fun with the process. I have a very contentious relationship with film. I've struggled to get films made, and I finally kind of figured out what my formula is to get it done. We made a short film called Gondola Home, and it was me just sort of throwing out all the rule books I was supposed to be following and figuring out my process, and
Yeah.
that worked. So we're trying it with Bonehead. We'll see what happens. But it's been fun so far. We've had a few rehearsals. I have a rehearsal in a few hours from now, in fact, and I it's a film, but I still want to rehearse. I've Chris Spinner talked to me about. He's like, your favorite director is Bob Altman. Copy him. Have rehearsals with your actors. Figure out your angles from that. And he was absolutely right. And that's been a great process for me. So I'm having a lot of fun.
Where are you filming?
Various locations. Some of it will be at the scene shop when there's another filmmaker named Noah McKay who's also shooting there for his film this summer.
Cool.
And then we're doing some at the park. My mother-in-law's house. Well, I haven't actually asked her yet, but I've shot there before. She's usually pretty cool. Places like that. There's a joke where they're supposed to shoot in a magic forest, and the gag is that it's actually just a park and there's like no trees. So stuff like that.
Cool. And what do you plan to do with the film? Like long term, are you going to enter it in things? Will you have a grand reveal? What's your timeline?
I am painfully bad about that kind of thing. I tend to make my art for me.
Yeah.
And then I have to have other people around me like, come on, Brit, focus. And so there's a young man who I think everyone else in town knows, but I've just met him, named John Witt, who's in the movie playing a character who plays multiple characters, and he seems to be having fun with that. But he's kind of pushing me towards festivals, and I'm like, okay, I guess maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
So something like that.
Cool. Well, I am so excited to see it. I'm so excited to learn more about this, and then also to get people plugged into the TEA group and in all sorts of capacities, right? It doesn't need to be, you don't need to be on stage. You don't even need to be behind the curtain, and you can be anywhere in that process. If you have a skill set, you can be using that to help support these community groups. So,
and if you're good at fundraising, the board of directors needs help with that too.
Everybody always needs help with fundraising.
Yeah, that's always the thing, isn't it?
I think there's a lot of creative ideas though. And so that's a good call to action, that if people are passionate about that, events, finding unique ways to get all of the support and the finances in place. I think that's a great reminder for people too.
Something I think this town could benefit from, and I don't know if it will work, but if you go to bigger cities where a lot, like New York, for example, plays they're performed well before they're performed. They do like the table reads and stuff for the public. And I really think that's something we should start doing for those of us who write plays. Getting the venues is more of a challenge, but I would happily do Wuthering Heights that way. It's a great way to workshop, and it's also kind of a way to fundraise. So,
well, and maybe Juniper can help with that.
Oh man, I will. We will keep each other in each other's phones here. It will happen.
Yes. Well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Do you have anything else that you'd let anybody you want to shout out? Any thank yous?
Just all my beautiful TEA people. I love you guys. You're the best. You guys have been a family for me.
Cool. Well, we will look forward to keeping you in the conversation.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to jump in with some facts.
Facts.
Tom Smith is the playwright.
That's right. Tom Smith. Thank you.
Yeah. Because as soon as you said that, I was like, he was one of my professors. I know who did this.
He's awesome. I love him.
TEA, I believe, is on their 28th season. So we're almost to 30 years.
I was off.
Yeah, no problem. And then Dell's thing that she's doing is called Right to Publish.
I was close.
All right. Well, Brit mentioned earlier that we've got Dracula, a comedy of terrors. The audition process is happening soon. And so the auditions are going to be Friday, July 17th, Saturday, July 18th, Sunday, July 19th, and Monday, July 20th. Do you have any notes about the audition process for people?
Pretty simple, just cold reads with the script. If you want to do any tech positions, go ahead and show up, but tell the people there. Melanie will almost certainly be running the front section, so just tell her I'm here for tech positions, that's it. But yeah, otherwise cold reads. You don't have to have a monologue. You got a lot of chances. Caleb's really wanting to have a lot of audition processes, so...
Awesome. And the show is going to be happening this fall, September 25th and 26th, and then October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And so auditions now, a long time of preparation, not a long time, but some time of preparation, and then a show coming this fall.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Brit, for coming and talking to us. We are so excited to be hearing about all of your work that you're doing. We're excited to see your shows, to see films that you're producing, and to get you plugged in. We are going to champion that. We'll keep asking, so we'll make sure that you're showing it to us when it's ready.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to keep the conversations going. So
absolutely.
We'll see you on the next one.
Yes.
A reminder for a few upcoming events. Film Four Corners is hosting Freedom Day's Electric Light Parade on Saturday, July 4th at 9 p.m. in downtown Farmington. Four Corners Musical Theater presents Grease, June 11th through July 12th at the Lions Wilderness Amphitheater, and the shows are starting at 8 p.m. Zia Chick's next concert will be in the Pavilion for Grease, July 2nd, starting at 7. Caliente Community Choir presents Cul-de-sac Concert on July 21st on Echo Lane off Glade Drive. Theater Ensemble Arts presents Dracula, a comedy of terrors on September 25th and 26th, October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Well, hey folks, it's Jordan Richards with Juniper Performing Arts Foundation. Don't forget to check out our podcast, Beyond the Curtain, anywhere you find podcasts. And if you would like to join us on the show, or you want to see somebody, or maybe you have someone that you think we should talk to, email us at info@juniperpaf.com. Don't forget to check out our website, juniperpaf.com, for all things performing arts related throughout Farmington and the northwestern New Mexico region.
A special thank you to our sponsors, Unsicker Law and Industrial Data Management. If you would like to sponsor this podcast, please email us.